Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Underground Racing League. Tonight, you got myself, Simon Bradley, and my partner is back, Kevin O'Pelly. How are you doing this evening? Or this morning, in your case?
Yeah, this morning, nice crisp morning down in New Zealand. So, getting over the illness. So, feeling pretty good today, though. So, looking forward to a cracking race.
You've had the dreaded COVID, I guess, and...
Yep. I think everyone's going to get it. So, it's been dodging bullets for a while. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, it can't be a great time because it's your indoor racing season right now, I guess, down there.
Yeah, we're pretty much racing all year round now, but it is our winter time. So, racing-wise inside, our team will do a heck of a lot more, being winter and too cold outside and dangerous to ride. So, a lot more racing.
All right, well, it's good to have you back. You were missed last month. So for those who don't know, the Underground Racing League is an elite series for the top 50 teams, according to Zwift Power. So we have 6 teams racing this evening. We'll take a look at those teams in a little bit more detail shortly. But if you're not racing this and you want your team and you're in the top 50 according to Zwift Power rankings, then get in touch with either Kevin or myself. My email being simon@levelvelo.cc. We do have the new series, which is going to start in September. So again, we race the third Friday of every month. And then we're heading up to the grand final in December, which is going to be very, very exciting. I think we're going to have some team prizes available when we get to that point as well. But we're still in the midpoint, or we're nearing the end of this first season. This week, we are in Neokyo, so let's take a quick look at the course. And this week, it's railways and rooftops. Kevin, what do you think about this course?
It's a great course, and I think the style of racing, it opens itself to a huge amount of opportunity for guys to attack non-stop. And there's not just one point every lap. With a 3-lap course, there's opportunities probably every couple of minutes for guys to attack off the front, which I think we're going to see today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we've seen so far with the Underground Racing, Kevin, is because the courses are reasonably short. There's 21 kilometres tonight, but we've got, a 2-kilometre lead in. There's always a standout feature, and tonight, of course, it is that rooftop drag, which we're going to be doing 3 times. Last month, it was the leg snapper in Innsbruck, which certainly ripped the legs of some of those riders and caused some destruction in that peloton. But that's the whole idea of Underground Racing. We keep it short. Lots of features in the race, and we're seeing plenty of attacking so far this season, Kevin.
Oh, exactly, and that's what people want to see. We don't want to have a big massive blob, basically, for an entire race. So, these sort of courses are perfect and ideal for guys to attack off the front and see who can go with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've just got a few minutes until the start of tonight's race, but as I said, this is Railways and Rooftops, 21 kilometres. 21 kilometres, 3 laps, 210 metres of elevation. Hope you're doing all right there, Kevin.
Yep.
3 times up this rooftop drag, and I am sure we're going to see plenty of action on the climb. But let's take a quick look at, first of all, the results and the team standings from last week. So these are the overall team standings so far, and it's your team, Kevin, at the top of the pile so far. NZ Bro on 228 points there. So you didn't win the race last week, or NZ Bro didn't win that race, but you got 3 riders, I believe, in the top 10. So some good results there.
Yeah, the guys are going pretty good, and we sort of have a good sprinter and a good climber, which always helps, and then other guys that are consistent across the board. So I think absolutely the composition is certainly there, which certainly helps. Yeah,
I think we saw Adil Tabalong doing a lot of the early work, and then it was Joshua Haggerty, I think, who managed to jump across to that lead group. And I actually, on the night, I thought he'd taken the victory, but it was ever so close, and he just got pushed out into second place by Brune from Next. Next also getting 3 riders in the top 10. They got 1st, 9th, and 10th, I believe. And then Mutant also getting 2 riders, James Young and Kuba Stavnatsky, also in the top 10. And BL13 getting Thomas Berry in there for 3rd. So as you can see on the points, NZ Bro at the top, as I've said, with 228 points. Mutant at close second, just 3 points behind. BL13, 216 points. And Next, let's not forget, Next have only been in this league for 1 of the races so far, where the other teams, NZ Bro, Mutant to BL13, all have 3 races apiece. So plenty to play for this week. And remember, all the points are on that finish line. And we're just a couple of seconds away now till we get out on course on the railways and rooftops of Neokyo for this short and intense course. So let's get out into the gameplay and take a look at what's happening. And there you go. You can see we're out on course. We're riding with NZ Bro. And already I'm seeing Michael Gamst, a figure we're used to seeing taking poles off the front of the course here. Or the front of the peloton, should we say. Pushing on early. Although just a meager 4 watts per kilogram.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me to see Michael pushing off the front. He's certainly got the goods in real life as well. Yeah, I see he was second at the World Championships in 2015, so he's certainly got the power there to be able to attack for a while.
Absolutely. Got a bit of a reputation for himself, I think, these days of taking that longer effort on the front and certainly doing a lot of work with the other riders. But the BL13 team tonight looks like Andy Nichols, Daryl Carter. I think this is his maiden evening. Is that the right one? Or I don't know how we call that, but it's the first time I think he's been racing himself. Normally, I know he's in the pen doing the DS work, so it's good to see Daryl out on course tonight. We've got Jeremy Lithgow from BL13, Mark Elding back again this month, and then, of course, Michael Gamst, who was away from the action last week, so it's good to have Michael back on course with the team. So we're just rolling out everyone together at the moment. Let's take a quick look at the Mutant team, which is Andrew Bunn, George Whitlock, James Young back again. Obviously, of course, very active last month. James Young there, Carsten Vidal, and Stephen Kenny there from Mutant as well. But already we're seeing some early action. Andy Nichols taking the front at 7.5 watts a kilo here, just getting a bit of a lead over James from Electric Spirit. And also I see Griffin here from Next trying to close that gap. And indeed, that's what's happening. But quite strung out here, Kevin, from the front to the back, I see.
Yeah, less than 2Ks in, and we've already got attacks off the front, which is pretty much what we expected. So I would say it's going to be like this for the whole race, with people stretching the legs, testing out the peloton and seeing what we can get from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And no... Yeah, we're seeing Brian Duffy Jr. out in front here as well. Another one of our lightweight riders. But again, an absolute engine there with Brian Duffy for Next, powered by Ensure.
Yeah, and this week kicker up before the actual lap starts, I think is really going to test everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as we take a short kick up here for just 500 meters this climb. It takes us up onto the railways. Before we get onto that rooftop climb, of course, which is going to come about midway through the lap. As we're just about to go through the official start banner there. Let's hope these riders have not forgotten that there are no preem points in the Underground Racing League. It's all about those finish line points. So we've taken a look at BL13 and Mutant. Well, let's have a look at that next team. We've got Brad Greenberg, Brian Duffy Jr., Jerry Hernandez, Greg Abbott, John Brune, of course, last month's winner, and Payne Griffin there for Next, also rounding out that team. So we've got 6 riders per team, but there's only 5 riders that can pick up points on the evening. So 5 riders per team will pick up points. It's nice to see here as well. I've just spotted the Sunshine kit, the new kit in game for a BL13.
Yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? Multicolored, nice and bright. And yeah. Gamst has got the matching Tron to go with the kit.
Always coordinated, I think, with the colours there from BL13. Absolutely classy as always.
It looks like we've got a wee break of Next, NZ Bro and BL13 off the front.
Indeed, we can see some of those wheels. So let's try and jump ourselves up there. And indeed, it is Gamst and Griffin, I believe, out in front. And I'm just trying to work out... Is it Aaron Bleakley up there for NZ Bro also?
It is.
Fantastic. So these guys already pulling out 9-10 second lead on the chasing peloton. A steady 6.5 watts a kilo for Michael Gamst. I say steady because we've certainly seen bigger numbers than that. Absolutely no chance I could be sustaining those numbers in this race. Taking it out early. We'd just crossed the line, Kevin, and they'd already applying the pressure.
Exactly, and Gamps can hold 6.4 for 5 minutes. He's probably just doing a couple of sweet spot efforts here.
Yeah, and I've noticed over the last couple of weeks with the results from Aaron Bleakley also has been coming into form. And it's indeed Aaron just pushing on the pace as we get up onto the rooftop climb here at 7 watts a kilo. With Payne Griffin and Michael Gamps sat in the wheel. I wonder if we're going to see a few elbow flicks here as these guys take their turns. Absolutely should be working together to extend this gap, which has gone out to 13 seconds now. As we see...
it'll be interesting to see the chase group to see who's actually going to try and pull this back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's going to be down to those teams, I guess. Mutants, I guess, are going to be sitting themselves on the front at some point there. But it's Electric Spirit, I think, doing the chase at the moment with Bailey sat on the front with a teammate, sat at 5 watts a kilo. But 5 watts a kilo is not going to be enough to pull this back. The gap going out to 17 seconds now. So let's jump ahead back again with Griffin, Gamst, and Bleakley as around about midway up now, this rooftop climb. So you can see we're 4.5 kilometers into this, and it is a 21-kilometer race. Kevin's a really great break here. So early in the race, already out to 20 seconds. Maybe some inspiration from the Tour de France today.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. They're pretty keen to push on too, and no one seems to be taking it easy and sitting on. So I guess these three guys really want to push in and make sure that it's just between the three of them.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing some action now in the front with Bailey and James from Electric Spirit, but these guys are going to need some help as we start to see some orange numbers appearing in that chasing group. But I think it's Mutant who need to get involved in the action on the front there with Bailey to try and close this gap. Holding a steady 19 seconds currently. So as I said, it is Aaron Bleakley from NZ Bro, Payne Griffin from Next Powered by Ensure, and Michael Gamst, the engine himself, sat up there for BL13. And these three seem to be working pretty well together so far, Kevin.
Yeah, which is good to see. So no one's sitting and making it hard for the other two and taking the emphasis away from the group, which is great to see. This is Payne's first time racing the underground as well. So he's putting on a good show for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see first time rider getting involved early in the mix here. We're just taking a look and riding on board with Aaron Bleakley. 179 beats per minute. Interesting to note he has a nice high RPM there for a Zwifter. We typically see a lot of Zwifters around there at about the 70 to 80 RPM. Aaron is sitting a little bit higher there, so that tells me he probably spends a lot of time out on the road.
Yeah, he's a mountain bike and CX racer as well as track, so used to probably a high cadence.
Yeah, absolutely. And these guys, again, just making the most of the recovery, but taking their turns pretty well. So as we see Aaron Bleakley back down to the front, back at 6 watts a kilo, just keep the pressure on, keep the speed high, and Gamston Griffin sitting that wheel.
Yeah, it looks like the bunch has picked up a couple of seconds, so...
Indeed,
a bit of action going on.
Yeah, we're down to 17 seconds. But holding there, and it is Electric Spirit still on the front there chasing. We are seeing Kenny also getting involved in the action on the front. Let's jump back and take a look at what's happening. But again, I'm sure the other teams next in BL13 are doing their job, just rolling through to the front and then backing off, just trying to slow this peloton down slightly. A tactic which is used quite often amongst these top teams. So in terms of NZ Bro, we need to cover who's in the team tonight. We've got Aaron Bleakley, as we've said up front. Adil Tabalong, who's had a number of victories so far this season in the Underground League. Bobby Kells, a rider I don't know too much about, Kevin, but I'll come back to you on that in a second. John Story. And Joshua Haggerty, of course, and Kyle Gray. Some new names there for NZ Bro this evening, Kevin.
Yeah, there is. So John Story's obviously a Olympic rower, so he's got a huge engine, so he can pretty much drive like a horse when he needs to and just put on huge power for a while. Kyle Gray's a new rider for the team, so he's he's one of the original NZ Pro riders. So started off in B grade and has moved his way up into A grade. So he's been going really well. So given him the opportunity to jump in here and give it a crack, which is pretty much the same as Bobby Callis, who's joined us a couple of months ago. Used to ride with Aaron originally, sort of 6 straight months ago. So it's good to see Bobby racing with us again too.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing plenty of black A+ next to the names of the NZ Bro, so you've got some good depth as well there, which is fantastic to see that you're able to rotate the riders around so much. So that's NZ Bro. Let's take a quick look at Electric Spirit. And then we've got Adam Bailey, Joe Endersby, Matthew James, Ray Wilson, and Tim Humpton, who has also featured in numerous underground racing series now. So it's great to see some regular names, but I think we're missing a rider from Electric Spirit. I think it was Greenberg last week who was very, very active. Hopefully he's managed to avoid the dreaded COVID. But we're back out to 19, 20 seconds here, Kevin. The same 3 riders maintaining the 6 watts a kilo, rotating well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Michael looks like he's just on a holiday. He was down to 148 beats. I see he's doing a wee bit more work. He's out to 168 now, but he certainly has a lot lower heart rate than the other 2.
Yeah, absolutely cruising still at 160 or the mid 160s beats per minute there, 395 watts. And then one of those riders got a low RPM, just 63 revs a minute. So very experienced Zwifter, and obviously got a bit of a reputation for himself of getting himself out there with these long pulls, often the strong lead out man, and he was absolutely one of the guys involved in that infamous victory that they had in that Legion's crit race a little bit further downtown actually in the park here, which was a fantastic event. Let's have a look. This gap is going out. I'm going to just skip back here and take a look at the peloton, which has gone out to 24 seconds here. And no one really taking up the chase at this point, Kevin.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's they're probably thinking to themselves, we can pull 20 seconds back. I'm guessing that someone's going to attack sooner or later, and it'll just light up, and they'll probably cut that gap down to sort of 5 or 6 seconds within half a lap if everyone sort of jumps on board.
Well, absolutely. We often see that, don't we? And well, we're seeing it at the moment in the Tour de France. You give them as many minutes as you want, but when those sprinters teams get on the case, that gap can come down pretty quickly. But we're at 9 or coming up to 9.5 kilometers through this race here, and the gap is continuing to extend at 24 seconds. So this will be a phenomenal result if these guys can stay away and hold off this chasing peloton. And at the moment, the chasing peloton, just as I say that, we do have a couple of riders just pulling through, but still just at 4.5 watts a kilo, and that gap is continuing to extend, as we just saw Adil Tabalong just roll through to the front, extend the watts, and then just back off to just slow that group down. So the experience showing once again, but that gap is still holding at 23 seconds here.
Yeah, I was hoping to see the bunch catch back up and force a few more attacks here, because we've actually got quite a few riders with 16 and 17 watts per kg sprints. So the likes of Joe Endersby and John Broon and Josh Haggerty, to get all of them lined up and hitting 16, 17s would be an epic finish.
Well, we're just about heading up the second time here up the rooftop climb. And that's a good question. We've got to take a look at these 3 riders here who've, of course, all got great engines. But we need to know what their sprint is like. If you can have a look a bit into that, Kevin. We're looking at Gamst, Bleakley and Griffin. I'd be really interested to see if these guys are hold on, because this gap is continuing to extend at 25 seconds.
So all of them sit around 11.5 to 12 watts per kg in their sprints. So they're actually almost identical. So
it's all going to be about timing and skill this evening then.
It will, and looking at them, most of them are pretty experienced, so no one will want to lead it out. So
absolutely. Well, we're over the halfway point here, and the gap has gone out yet again. 28 seconds. This will be absolutely phenomenal if these guys can stay out. Remember, they went from the gun. We hadn't even gone through the official start banner, and these 3 riders were off the front. There was one early move, and then these 3 rolled straight over the top. And again, we're with Payne Griffin, Aaron Bleakley, and Michael Gamster, the Danish rider, out there almost 30 seconds ahead of the group as we take on the second time up this climb, which is the rooftop climb. We're 11 kilometers into the race with just 10 kilometers to go to the finish here. Again, we're seeing some orange numbers there, 9, 10 watts a kilo as they start to get onto the foot of this climb. But it's NZ Bro and BL13 just getting on the front and then backing off. The numbers turn back to white. Let's see if this gap continues to push out. It's Mutant, I think, Kevin, who really need to get on the front and start chasing this down, because at the moment they're not going to be taking any of the silverware or the bronze or the gold at the end of this race, the way it stands.
No, and Adele's pushing it pretty hard, considering he's got a rider up front. So.
Do you need to jump on the Discord? That's what I'm thinking, Kevin.
Yeah. What are you doing, Adele?
Well, he does have a reputation to do that, but not chase down, but push it on the climbs for sure, Adil. I've had the displeasure of racing with Adil before, and I say it was a displeasure because I did make it into the final 3 kilometers, and then he dropped me in the S's quite promptly as we were heading back towards downtown Watopia. But this gap is starting to come back now. It's 24 seconds, and indeed it is Vidal from Mutant on the front, but still a very modest 3 to 4 watts a kilo. These guys just taking the recovery on the front. Again, Bleakley, Griffin and Gamst on the front here, cruising in recovery. And are we going to see them up the power and up the pace as soon as we hit the bottom of this descent, Kevin?
Yeah, it's interesting. The teams aren't really pushing the pace, are they? They need to be pushing sort of 6s and 7s to pull this back.
No, we're approaching the final third of this race now. So are they playing for minor points here? 4th down to 28th with the points. But it looks like these 3 riders here at the moment look like they're going to take the top 3 spots. And we're going to see a sprint amongst the diesel engines.
We will, by the look of this. Yeah, and it certainly won't match the pace of the energy the guys will have in the main bunch behind it. So yeah, I think it'll come down to timing for the front 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Timing, skill, and drafting knowledge. I think, remember, no power-ups in the Underground Racing League. This gap is starting to come back a little bit here, but not quick enough at the moment. As we see the peloton just super tucking and recovering down this descent. And we are down to 22, 23 seconds. Probably just a reaction, the fact that we've got such a big group that's chasing here. 20 plus riders. 24 riders in this chasing group. The momentum is going to be with them on that descent. But once we get onto that climb and that flat roads, again, if those front 3 riders continue with the power as they have, they look like they're going to stay away, because we are approaching the final 7 kilometers now.
Yeah, and the front's still pushing 5s and 6s. So
yeah, absolutely. We can see here as we're back on with Bleakley, Gamston, Griffin, maintaining 5.5 watts a kilo, working well together here. I've not really noticed if we've had any particular rider at this point sitting on, but it'd be interesting as we start to get closer towards the finish, which one of these riders is going to just take a little bit more recovery and save himself and take that prime position at the back of these 3 riders. As we see Gams just on the front.
Aaron using a drafting pair up there.
Absolutely. Maybe we've got a little bit of a bug in the system here.
That'd be a good hack, wouldn't it, to have your own power-ups?
Well, we might have to do some checks there, but yeah, Michael Gams just on the front here. 4 watts a kilo. In fact, Bleakley on the front, 6 watts a kilo. Gams sitting in that wheel at 4.3. And Griffin sitting at 3.5 as he starts to push through to the front and take his turn at 7 watts a kilo. So absolutely, these guys are working really, really well together and maintaining this gap at 23 seconds. Let's take a look if we're seeing any action at the back. Unfortunately, for Mutant and Electric Spirit, I do believe that the other teams, or the other riders from the same teams, are doing their job, getting on the front and just backing off that pace. We're seeing no reaction here, no chase at all. 3-4 watts a kilo from this chasing group. And in fact, you've got 3 NZ Bro riders sat on the front currently, just blocking the road.
Yeah, they're doing well, just pacing that and forcing the others to roll over them.
Absolutely unbelievable this. We're seeing 3 riders here, 3 diesel engines with Gamst, Griffin and Bleakley. Go from the gun, extending this gap as we thought they would, Kevin, as we got onto the flat roads, and we're back out to 26, 27 seconds.
And Adele pushing it again and forcing the pace.
I did see him immediately back off there, but again, I think that's just the experience of these riders getting onto the front and just backing off to slow this pace down. This absolutely is looking like it's going to be amongst these 3 riders. We're on board with Gamst at the moment, just sitting at a comfortable 300 watts, 163 beats per minute. We know there's plenty more in the engine there.
Yeah, I think Griffin's in good form too, so it'll be interesting. Aaron's been sick for the last couple of weeks, so it'll be interesting to see how much energy he's got left in the tank.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got Griffin, who sits at, I think, 11.3 watts a kilo, you said, for his best sprint. Aaron,
Yep.
Well, Aaron's showing up as a 14 watt per kilo sprinter here, so some good numbers. And then let's take a look at Michael Gamst, also around about the 11.5 mark. So it does favour Aaron at the moment. And it is a fairly flat finish here as well. But again, I think there's nothing between these 3 riders. And it's all going to come down to that skill and timing. And we're just about to get on to the climb for the final time. And then we're going to descend all the way to the finish line there. And the gap's still at 26 seconds. And it's Gamst coming through at 9 watts a kilo. Just trying to drag himself back onto these front 2, which is Griffin and Bleakley. Griffin just backing off the pace there. It's interesting. Are these riders, Kevin, going to stay together all the way up this climb, or are we going to see an action? Are we going to see any rider try and remove themselves from this front group?
Yeah, they're pushing pretty hard, and obviously they don't want to get caught from behind either, and it looks like there's a
Let's
wee
not
bit of
say it's Adil Tabalong on the front again.
It is pushing in the tens, so... But I think there's a big enough gap for these guys to hold it off. I can't see them closing this down. So.
Absolutely. The gap is coming down a little bit, and I am surprised to see Tabalong on the front there at pushing 6, 7, 9 watts a kilo on the front, but maybe he's just trying to extend and drop some more riders in that peloton. Let's have a look quickly at what's going on in that peloton, and indeed, Tabalong has just broken himself free of that peloton, trying to close the gap at 10.5 watts a kilo. At least he's not on the front pulling these riders along. He has managed to get some separation there. But is this going to just induce a reaction from everyone else?
I guess he's thinking he can't outsprint those guys, so it's probably a good time to attack them on a hill where he's the lighter rider and get a gap before the finish.
Absolutely, and we've got Brian Duffy Jr. there just trying to close the gap on Adil, and Andy Nichols from BL13 next in line again trying to close that gap. I see Young also, and then we're back into the main group here. So let's take a look further up the field, and I think this gap has come down. Indeed, just 9 seconds back to Adil Tabalong now, and about 15 seconds back to the main group, the main peloton. But these 3 riders of Bleakley, Gamst and Griffin still together as we just cresting the top of this climb. Very shortly we'll go through the Kambana, and then it's the descent. And as I said, it's probably a good idea just to extend that peloton slightly, because it is the peloton that will have the momentum and the advantage as we drop down this other side. But we've got so far Bleakley, Griffin, Gamst out in front. Then we've got Brian Duffy Jr., Adil Tabalong and James Young just chasing those riders down before we get into the main group, which so far has got Young, Story, Hernandez on the front, just trying to close the gap. But this gap very quickly coming down, and I think these riders, Kevin, look like they're going to get across.
Yeah, it looks like Brian and Adele are going to close the gap here and have two riders from Next and two from NZ Bro in the front group.
Which was pretty much how it was as well last month, if you remember it, in Innsbruck. A few more riders just managed to make that junction towards the end of the race. But we're going to have a leading 5 here. And that actually will play into their favour. I think a slightly bigger group here to try and hold that momentum of the draft and the speed and get a bit more recovery. But these guys are not going to be able to finesse here because the chasing group at 10 seconds will close them down reasonably quickly here as we're into the final 3 kilometres of tonight's race. And it's
there's certainly no time for sitting in, is there?
No, absolutely. It's Gamps just sat on the back here. 2 watts a kilo, just cruising through on this descent. We're still holding at 10 to 11 seconds. As soon as we get to the foot of this descent, though, these guys will have to push on because the chasing peloton, Kevin, are going to chase them down, close them down pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing how just a one hard push from a group can cut that down if they're not being careful. So, and they certainly won't want a couple more riders joining them.
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment, they're just out of sight, so out of mind. But if they get to the point where that chasing group can see these leading 5 riders, well, that's a little bit of a carrot and incentive you need, I think, Kevin.
Exactly, and the likes of Elding who can put out, that 16k sprint. We've seen it from Josh in the leg snapper that they can pretty much cut that down in one sprint and get straight onto the back. So they'll have to be careful here because someone will try and sprint across to them before the finish.
Absolutely. Well, we are approaching the final kilometre now. That gap down to 8 seconds, still out of sight. And it's Michael Gamps still on the back. He's not moved from the back here for quite some time. But he's got to be careful because no doubt with Next and NZ Bro are just starting to react at the front here.
Yeah, and Griffin's gone. He's started to attack early.
And indeed, it's Griffin off the front here with 11 watts a kilo as we do close in on the finish here. And it's Aaron Bleakley just trying to close that gap also at 10 watts a kilo. But has he gone a little bit early here, Payne Griffin? We're starting to see the finish line. It should be in sight pretty soon. And indeed, we see Gamps rolling through. Aaron Bleakley pushing through. Adil Tabalong, let's not forget, he is an engine, but he also has a reasonable sprint. And here we go, it's Brian Duffy Jr. on the front. And Adil Tabalong also pushing on. And indeed, there we go. That was a close finish between Brian Duffy Jr., I think it was, and Adil Tabalong there.
It was, and I'm not sure who actually got that.
Yeah, that's such a tight finish there, but the leading 5 managed to stay away from the chasing group. Some fantastic racing there, Kevin.
Yeah, I was surprised that the gap actually come down and we saw riders actually get across that gap. So, yeah, great racing in the end to see a group of 3 ended up into a group of 5 and the chasing group only a few seconds back as well.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal racing, which we always expect to see with this format, as I've said. Small group, so we've got less than 30 riders in the race, picking the courses that have these features. And we always try and keep the racing under 30 minutes. I think it was around about 27 minutes this evening. So it's always just under 20 kilometers that we aim for. But those 3 climbs, well, those 3 riders just stayed out through the duration. It was only on the descent where those 2 riders managed to get across.
Yeah, and I think Mutant and Electric Spirit and the ones that didn't have riders in that front group will be kicking themselves for not pushing on early and keeping that gap sort of at a maintainable level. And I think if it was down to that 10 seconds or 9 seconds, they might not have pushed as hard as they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Just bear with me, Kevin. I'm going to hopefully get across and we can have a look at the results from this evening's race. Right, Kevin, I think the results in, so let's jump across to Zwift Power and take a look at these results in a bit more detail to see who got that win. Let's scroll down, and indeed it was Brian Duffy Jr. from Next Powered by Ensure who got the victory, and it was your man Adil Tabalong who closed the gap on that climb, Kevin, who put himself into 2nd place, but also backed it up, Aaron Bleakley, with a 3rd there. So 2 riders in the top 3 from NZ Bro.
Yeah, he did well. The two riders that get across take first and second prize, so the three breakaway riders will be pretty gutted, I'd say.
Yeah, well, they had a pretty easy
close.
ride, I think, in that peloton, didn't they, up until that final lap. So I guess it stands to reason that they had enough in the engine there at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, full credit for them for pushing and getting across, just the two of them, especially. They could have taken the whole lot, but pushed at the right time to get that gap and not drag everyone with them.
Yeah, I think, well, you and I were questioning Adil's tactics at some point, whether he was going to bring it across, but they managed to break themselves free to get across there. So great result, I think, for NZ Bro, and that will actually put you in even stronger position, I think, in team standing. But what we can see, once again, is that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 riders from next in the top 10. So we've got Brian Duffy Jr., of course, taking the win there. But we've got Griffin Payne, who was out front with Gamst and Bleakley for the duration of the race. He picked up 5th. Brune, who was last week's victor, or last month's victor, should I say, picking up 6th. Joshua Haggerty once again getting himself in the mix there, closing that gap. It looks like there was only 9 seconds there between the leading 5 riders, in fact, and then the chasing group. Brad Greenberg once again up there for next. Andy Nichols from BL13 taking 9th, and Greg Abbott, as we've said, from next. Powered by Ensure taking 10th. So plenty of points for NZ Bro, but next are starting to close this gap, Kevin, I think.
Yeah, next did really well, especially with the top 10 results there. So a really strong performance from them, which is great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we look at the average watts a kilo of those riders there, Aaron Bleakley, 5.4 watts a kilo. Michael Gamps, 5.1. Griffin Payne, 4.6. But again, it's those riders, those 2 riders, Bleakley and Gamps, who you can see did the majority of the work. Adil Tabalong also spent a bit of time on the front, but 4.9 watts a kilo. But a lot of that was drifting through to the front and backing off, as we said. So great knowledge in team tactics. Electric Spirit with Ray Wilson getting themselves up there in the points this week as well. So it'll be interesting to see next month if we have a look at the team standings. But as we say that, let's take a look at the upcoming races that we have. So indeed, this week it was Railways and Rooftops. Next month, we're over on Downtown Dolphin. So a crit course, 10 laps of a crit course next month in August. What do you think of that, Kevin?
Yeah, that'll be interesting, especially the wee pinch climb each lap. I'm sure we're going to see heaps and heaps of strung out riders all over the place, especially if you're not feeling good.
I think it'd be really interesting to see. We've not seen a bunch gallop, I think, so far in this series. And it'd be really interesting to see if we finally see a big bunch mass sprint at Downtown Dolphin. That's why we've thrown it in there. But I'm like you, Kevin. I don't think we will. I just think there are too many engines in all of these teams that the teams will just keep trying and trying. And eventually some legs are going to give way on that course, even with just 10 laps, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll see a Zwift race where you could say, a third of the riders can do 15 watts per kg either. So if we do come down to a bunch, I mean, if you're not doing over 12, you might as well just sit back and go, yep, it was a good race, guys. Cheers for coming.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're attracting so many teams now to the Underground Racing League, Kevin, because we've got the best teams and the best riders are here racing these events. And in fact, from September, we've got a number of other teams. World Elite Zwifters being one of them. AHDR also that we've spoke about. I think Dirt are also putting a team, but it's their top teams, the A-plus riders who are turning up to the Underground Racing League and making this racing exciting. So once again, Kevin, thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure as always. You weren't that biased this week with NZ Bro, so it's always appreciated. For those who don't know, Kevin is the team owner of NZ Bro, but it's good to see that you keep that excitement in check for this race series.
I can't sit there and just talk about our own team, and but no, it's good to see and good to be involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, if you do want to get involved with the Underground Racing League, then drop myself or Kevin a message via the usual social channels or via email. Don't forget, join in next month. Next month's race, Friday the 26th of August, 7:15 GMT UK time. We'll see you all next month. Right on.